Was that a thumbs up?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyid al-Anbiya'i wa Mursaleen Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you all for taking the time to join us today for a brief reminder here at Asr time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless your families. Today, we wanted to have a presentation or a discussion around something that's really special. And what we want to talk about today is, first off, just take a step back and consider that when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to encourage his companions to do something or to say a certain phrase, the intent is not that it be said with just a rote repetition, just repeating without really any mental engagement, but rather the idea is that these phrases that we're encouraged to repeat frequently or to be close to, the point of that is so we can start to internalize the meanings of what those phrases actually entail. And in that regard, I want to speak about something that's very relevant to the month of Ramadan, actually. And it's something that the Prophet ﷺ used to frequently tell his companions to say. He gave similar advice to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, to Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, to Abu Huraira, radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with all of them, and to others as well. And the hadith that we'll mention is one that's actually in Bukhari and Muslim. And in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he said, "Ala adulluk ala khinz min khanazi al-jannah, min khinz min khaza'in al-jannah. Should I not guide you to a treasure from among the khaza'in, the treasures of paradise?" And Abu Musa said, "Bala ya Rasulullah." Of course, O Messenger of Allah, please tell me what is this treasure? So imagine for a moment the Prophet ﷺ is telling you, I'm going to tell you about a treasure from the treasures of paradise, of Jannah. How exciting would that be? How engaged will we be to listen? What is this treasure? Where do I find it? If I told you right now, 2 blocks away from your home, there's a treasure from Jannah that's sitting over there, all of us would turn the Zoom off, we'd rush out of our houses, we'd close the laptop, right? We'd run down the street to find out what's this treasure waiting for us that's from paradise, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this case, the Prophet ﷺ, he replied by saying, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." This is a phrase that probably most of us listening are familiar with. And when you look at the English interpretation or the English translation of this phrase, in the early books that I would read that would quote this statement of the Prophet ﷺ, it would mention, the mention of the translation would be, there is no might or power except with Allah. So you may have come across that before. There's no might or power except with Allah, or except through Allah. But when I would read that, just as a native English speaker, if you were to ask me what's the difference between might and power, they're essentially synonymous, right? So I was a bit limited in appreciating why the two different words, right? Hawla and quwwata. What's the difference or significance of those statements? And so after digging a bit more into the Arabic, I learned that the root for this hawla or hawla, actually a better understanding or translation would be a transformation or a change in condition. So we could translate this as, there is no transformation and there is no power or ability, quwwa, except through Allah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And we reflect on this phrase because we are in the month of transformation. The month of Ramadan, all of us, our goal should be that we enter Ramadan and we know that we have some goals. Allah Azza wa Jal, He gave us the primary goal, right? كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. We hear every Ramadan, we are reminded from the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah that fasting has been prescribed for you, just like it was prescribed for those who came before you, so that you could become people of taqwa, of heightened consciousness and awareness and being on guard with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the goals of our fasting is taqwa. One of the goals of our fasting is that we can have increased consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we know that fasting isn't just for the sake of fasting, but rather fasting has a specific goal, right? And taqwa has many manifestations. So when we think about the goals of our fasting, for some of us, we need to increase our taqwa in terms of what we listen to. For some of us, we need to increase our taqwa or our consciousness of Allah in terms of the things that we watch or we view on our screens. For some of us, it's to increase our consciousness in terms of the way we interact with people, the interactions we have with our family, our temper, our charity and our giving. Taqwa can encompass so many different actions. And that's the beautiful thing about the comprehensiveness of it, is that all of us come into Ramadan with strengths and with opportunities for improvement. So ideally, as we're here in the midpoint of Ramadan, we can reflect a bit. We can look at the first half of Ramadan and determine to what extent am I improving in terms of those goals that I've set for myself. If I know that I need to be a more patient person, for example, and Ramadan is a school of patience, then how is fasting helping me achieve that goal? As I refrain from eating and drinking, am I also, refraining from, using bad language, refraining from snapping at someone because I'm upset with them or because I'm annoyed with them, or whatever that looks like for you. So all of us are in this spiritual practice of trying to better ourselves, to get rid of bad habits, to increase our good habits, right? Open up that Quran on a more regular basis, to listen to beneficial talks on a more regular basis, to give some more charity, do that on a more regular basis. And with the idea being those lessons are to carry on. So ideally, Ramadan is a month of transformation, just as when the Quran came to this world, the goal was transformation, right? When the revelation came, and as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran, the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was sent. The Quran was sent to transform our reality, right? And to bring us close to our Creator. So with that being the case, we've established that ideally Ramadan is a month of transformation. So how do I transform? How do I improve? How do I better myself? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah should be our starting point, should be the framework that guides our approach. That there's no transformation and there's no power and ability except through Allah. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the famed scholar among the companions, he said in his interpretation of this statement, he said that there is no hawla, there's no transformation when it comes to abstination from sin, staying away from ma'asi, from disobeying or rebelling against Allah, that there's no abstination, transforming yourself to stay away from sin, except through Allah, and there's no power to increase or engage in good deeds except through Allah. So this was exactly how he understood it. The description we just gave was actually based on the interpretation of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he understood from this that the whole process of self-improvement is twofold, right? We do our part, and yes, to be a better person is not just to throw your hands up and say, Ya Allah, change me and do nothing else. Yes, we make the dua, and understanding with that dua that Allah is the one who first has to bless us with that ability to transform. So if we need to stop something we're doing wrong, we know that the strength to do so comes from Allah. If we want to increase our good deeds and be better people and be more productive and be better for our community and do all of these good things, we understand that all those virtues come from Allah. And that may seem self-evident, but I can't tell you how many people, they say, I'm going to give up a certain bad habit, and they will check every medical resource, every scholarly article, get advice from friends. They'll work through all these different worldly means, which is all correct, but they leave out the component of asking Allah Azza wa Jal to improve them. And so if you leave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of that equation, then you're never going to be complete in your transformation. And likewise, when you do good, and oftentimes we may give charity because it gives us a good warm feeling inside, or we may increase our prayers in Ramadan because everyone's doing it, but to really have the strength to bring those things into your character, then that strength only comes from Allah. And that strength, understanding that it comes from Allah, will help to balance us out and prevent us from being arrogant, right? Because it's possible someone can do good things, but those good things without the recognition of the fact that God gave you the power and the ability and the energy and the physical and mental faculties to do those good things, if you leave that out of the equation, then you're only asking to become someone who's arrogant. That's almost inevitable. Look at the story of Iblis. Lanatullah alayh. Iblis, or the devil, his origin story is that he was actually someone from the jinn who was worshiping God in an amazing fashion. In fact, he was such a good worshiper that he was allowed to go up to the heavens by the permission of Allah and to worship alongside the angels until he became like a chief among them, or a big shot among them, or a leader among the angels even. And this was through his piety and his prayer and his, having this devotion towards Allah. But what happened? We are all likely familiar with the story, that he allowed arrogance to creep in. He allowed arrogance to creep in. And so his response when Allah asked him to prostrate his body to Adam, which was at this point an unproven creature, but yet he's getting all this honor and respect. We don't know of a time, Allahu A'lam, where the angels were told to do sajda or to prostrate themselves in front of Iblis. But this happens, this honor where all the angels are now expected to honor Adam. All of a sudden, the attention is no longer with Iblis, but now the attention's on Adam, and then that jealousy and arrogance crept in. And so despite all of his good actions, as we all know, that arrogance and jealousy can destroy our good actions and our good deeds. And so as we do good work, we always have to ground ourselves and understand that the only reason, if you clicked on this video and you're trying to benefit, that is from Allah giving you the strength to do that instead of, listening to something else, or just, playing a game, or just doing, whatever else you wanted to do. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives someone the ability to work for his sake, or to grow in their knowledge, the fact that we're doing that, we should all stop and say, Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Allah, for giving me, putting it in my heart to improve my relationship with you. And so this is La quwwata illa billah. So La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. In the hadith that speak about this, the ahadith that speak about this phrase, in one occasion, the Prophet ﷺ, he called it a treasure from among the treasures of paradise. In one occasion, he called it a phrase from among the treasures of paradise. On one occasion, he called it a bab min abwab al-jannah. He called it a door or a gate from among the gates of paradise. So this shows us how integral, how fundamental understanding this concept of la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It's really one of the baselines for our iman, is to have that recognition of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something that, as some hadith mention, akthiru, say it a lot, say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no transformation or power except through Allah. Say it in multiple situations. However, there are also specific times in which we are encouraged to say this statement. There are specific times in which the Prophet ﷺ specifically advised that people use or say this phrase. And so famously, and we all know, when we go to the masjid, we listen to the adhan. Many of us in our homes before prayer, someone gives the adhan, right? Now the adhan is something that is really unique and special, right? The adhan is something that it's really starting to shift your mindset from the issues of regular life to a focus on your Creator. The Prophet ﷺ was described as someone who, when he was at home with his family, he would help around the house, he would sew his own clothes, repair his own shoes. But when the call to prayer was made, he became singularly focused on the salah, and he left off everything else to now turn his attention to Allah from the time of the adhan. Unfortunately, in many of our homes, what we find, at least I know I've experienced this, I've talked to my kids about it, right, is I may stand up to give the adhan for salah, and the kids might keep watching the show they're watching, or keep playing the game that they're playing, or keep having the conversation they're having, instead of starting that transformative process, right? So when the adhan is called and you hear someone saying the adhan, then what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to ideally pause what we're doing. If you hear the adhan, if you're in earshot, and start to repeat after the mu'adhin. Start to repeat after the person calling the adhan. And this repetition is now connecting you to the words that the mu'adhin is saying, and it's now drawing you into that important act that you're about to do. And so when the mu'adhin says, Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater than all, Allah is greater than all, you start to say that. And as you're saying, Allah is greater than everything, Allah is greater than all things, as you're saying that, your focus starts to move away from whatever it was, your work or your school or your entertainment. Allahu Akbar. Now my mind is starting to shift towards what I'm about to do, right? And this is something, just a benefit from that you can take from this, is anyone who struggles with khushu', and all of us should be working to improve our khushu', or you can translate that as our humility and concentration within our prayer, right? So understand that khushu' starts, or humility and concentration in prayer starts before the prayer starts. It should start before the prayer starts. Ideally, it should start with the call to prayer. So when you hear that call to prayer, you've already now started to go into salah mode, you could say. You're now in that mode of prayer. So as you're hearing the mu'adhin, you're saying, repeating Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater than all things. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, testify that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, I testify that Muhammad is indeed the messenger of Allah. But then the mu'adhin says, as the hadith came in Sahih Muslim, when the mu'adhin says, Hayya ala salah, when the mu'adhin says, come to salah, then the response is actually our phrase from the treasures of Jannah, our treasure from the treasures of Jannah, this door from the doors of Jannah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That there is no transformation or power except through Allah. And the scholars discussed, why is it that this is said? Why is it that this is said? One of the wisdoms we could understand from it, and this is something that we can see in our own lives in reality, is if I accept the premise that I won't stop my bad things, my bad habits, and I won't be able to do good except through Allah, then the adhan is a hujjah, it's a proof for this every single day. Why is that? Particularly, maybe more pronounced in the Muslim world, where you hear the adhan and the loudspeakers and the mu'adhin is saying it real time. But when the adhan is called, how many millions of people, unfortunately, but how many millions of people hear the adhan and don't respond? How many people hear the mu'adhin saying, come to prayer, and they're physically capable to come to prayer? There's nothing preventing them. They have the ability to go to the masjid. They have the ability maybe even to pray at home, but they don't respond. They don't respond to hayya ala salah, come to prayer. Then the mu'adhin says again, hayya ala al-falah, come to success. Come to success. Falah comes from the root, which goes back to the tradition in farming. When someone puts in it's the fruits that you get after investing something or after planting your seeds, then the falah is the success of harvesting that investment. So real success is when you plant those seeds of salah, you plant those seeds of faith, then success is an inevitable result. How many people, they hear the mu'adhin saying, this is where your success is, yet we seek our success in our jobs, we seek our success in our school, we seek our success in entertainment. And again, all of those things in and of themselves aren't necessarily bad, but when you exclude Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you don't embrace the fact that without Allah in that equation, there will be no success, then that's when someone becomes a loser. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, don't be busied with your wealth. Don't let your children and your wealth busy you from the remembrance of Allah. وَمَن يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. Whoever does that, those people, they are really losers. And so when we hear the mu'adhin saying, Hayya ala salah, and we say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, we understand, Ya Allah, if you don't keep it in my heart to do this prayer, I can't do it. If you don't give me the continued ability and strength to do this prayer, then I know that many people don't. So when I hear the mu'adhin, this should be an appreciation. If for many of us, the adhan is just an automatic thing, we repeat it without really any sort of, presence of mind. But when you repeat for the mu'adhin, take a moment and appreciate the fact that, Ya Allah, you are giving me a gift by responding to your call. You're giving me a gift by responding to your call and by helping me to transform myself and to strengthen me through this salah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So this is just a brief reflection on our saying it within the context of the adhan. And as the hadith in Sahih Muslim came, that this person who repeats the adhan throughout the entire repetition, at the end of the hadith it says, and if you say this from your heart, if you say La ilaha illallah at the end and you say the whole thing from your heart, that this will be a reason that you enter into paradise. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enter us all into paradise. Ameen. So this is one occasion in which La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is encouraged. There are so many others. There's famously one of the du'as that we say when we leave the house, the hadith of Anas ibn Malik, when the Prophet ﷺ, he said that whoever says when they leave their house, Bismillah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Whoever leaves their home and they say, in the name of Allah, I have placed my full trust and reliance upon Allah. There is no power, or there's no transformation, and there's no power except through Allah. Then it will be said to that person, as it came in the hadith, that you are taken care of and you are protected, and shaitan will leave that person alone. You are taken care of and you are protected, and shaitan will leave that person alone. So someone who leaves their home, now I know, mashallah, for many of us, we don't get to leave our homes that often in the midst of this pandemic. And there are others from among us who, mashallah, due to the essential nature of your work or just the nature of your work in general, you have to be out and about regardless of what's going on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of you in either circumstance. But when you leave the home, you start by saying Bismillah. And this is just by itself something very powerful. Because if you think about it, when I'm leaving home, I step my foot out the door and I say Bismillah. I mention I'm doing this, beginning my journey, beginning my exit, beginning my endeavor with the name of Allah. Then it's not conscionable that I would then intentionally go to do something wrong. I would intentionally go to sin. How can I walk out of my house, say Bismillah, and then I go to, sell poison to my community? How can I say Bismillah when I leave my house and then go to meet someone in a circumstance that's not permissible? How can I say Bismillah and do any of these things? So I'm blessing my exit from my house by saying Bismillah. Tawakkaltu ala Allah. And if you go back in the archives, I don't know if they're on YouTube, but Imam Abdulrahman did a very beautiful explanation after the Salah several months ago about the full meaning of tawakkul, but this essence of full reliance and trust and understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my wakil. He is the one who takes care of all of my affairs. He's the one who disposes my affairs for me. And then we end with La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no transformation, there is no strength except through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so as we leave the home, we are resetting ourselves, we're resetting our hearts to remember that if I'm about to go to work, then this rizq that I'm seeking, this provision, the money I'm trying to earn, that my condition only changes for the better by the permission, the power of Allah. If I'm going to school, that to go through the various grades and levels and to improve myself, only through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that endeavor going to be truly successful and possible. Wherever I'm going, if I'm going to volunteer, if I'm going, whatever you can think of, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is a beautiful level set for yourself for what you're about to engage in. And again, I know that many of us, we leave the house, if mashallah, we say this dua on a regular basis, we've all been guilty of maybe just rattling it off, right? And not really considering it. But as we mentioned at the beginning, when the Prophet ﷺ, when he told us to pay attention to a phrase, we should really give it our attention. This is really the hallmark of our faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he speaks about the Quran, he says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ, in two places, right? Don't they think deeply, reflect deeply about the Quran? When he speaks about the believers, he says, what about them? يَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. They think deeply. They really consider the creation of the heavens and the earth. We are a people who engage in reflection. And so whether it's the shortest phrase, if it's saying Allahu Akbar before we pray and the wisdom of that, to a longer dua that you know, understand that there are so many benefits we can derive by just having a discussion or having an analysis like this, where we look at what is the meaning, when did the Prophet ﷺ recommend that we engage in this particular action or saying, and then how is it that I can get the most out of it, right? How can I get the most out of that thing so I can really embody the spirit of that thing that I'm saying? So this is another example, leaving the house, of saying this dua. Also, it is something that is recommended. There's a longer dua after the salah, in which la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is mentioned. We know after every prayer, the Prophet ﷺ used to say, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulku lahul hamdu huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, wa la na'budu illa iyyah. And then he would go on to say the rest of this dua. Lahu ni'ma wa lahu al-fadl wa lahu al-thana'u al-hasan, la ilaha illallah mukhlisina lahu din wa law kariha al-kafirun. That there is no God but Allah alone, with no partner or associate. His is the sovereignty, and to him be the praise, and he's able to do all things. There is no transformation, and there is no power except through Allah. And we don't worship anything other than him alone. From him become all of our blessings and favors, and all the good praise is due to him. There is no God but Allah, and we make our worship purely for him alone, however much the disbelievers may dislike that. So mashallah, our time is about finished. We don't have time to really analyze this hadith. It's also narrated from Abu Zubair in Sahih Muslim. But just know there are other circumstances, mashallah, when this phrase is authentically been reported to us to be used. And so I hope that in our short time today, we were able to appreciate a little bit more this treasure from among the treasures of paradise. SubhanAllah, as we said in the beginning, if you know there's a treasure from Jannah somewhere, you should rush towards it. By the end of this khatara, maybe all of you now have memorized, if you didn't already, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You've embraced the meaning of it. You've had a couple examples of where you can apply it. And I pray that this treasure of Jannah, of transformation and strength through Allah, is one that we can implement during our practice in the month of Ramadan, and then we can implement throughout the rest of our lives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless your families. Thank you so much for listening. We miss you all and look forward to seeing you back on our masjid very soon. Jazakumullahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.